on both sides of the coin, as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, you see these situations, and my bottom line would be this. Everyone in this room, you get stopped by a police officer. Is that the time to debate your constitutional rights? No, sir. He pulls me over. I'm going to go, I remember you from what do you want? I'll give you, what do you want? Because you can search my car, you ain't going to find a pound of weed. All right? You ain't going to find any contraband. So just recall that. You don't want to escalate that situation with that officer and with yourself. You've got a constitutional right. Something happens. You call Brian, you call me, or you call somebody when it's done. Don't escalate. Because that's what we're going to talk about now. How many know the name George Zimmerman? All right? If someone hadn't raised their hand, I'd have said, where you been living? Are you here because you carry at times? Are you here because you have a weapon in your home? How many people have ever had to use it because they've been confronted by someone or some noise or something? Anybody? What if I come at you right now, young lady? What if I'm going to threaten you? I'm going to take this. What you got here? I'm going to take this. Let me have this. Come on, give it to me. I want it now. I'm taking it. Give it to me, damn it. Mike, I need an officer. What if I start to pull back? I'm sorry, man, but you're the smallest person right here. You're messing with him or him or him. All right? And I'm going to cold cock you.
Take it.
Take it. Do you have a weapon?
Nope.
If you had a weapon, what would you do? What would you do? How many times have you thought about that? What would you do? If you had a weapon, if you had a handgun that was readily accessible to you, and I came at you to take that, you wouldn't give it to me, and I tag you once, and you go down, and I come at you again. What are you going to do? Huh? What are you going to do? That doesn't make a difference. I won't pick on you because you're an invalid right now. Does it make a difference I come at you as opposed to her?
I would probably shoot.
Why?
Fear for my life.
Why are you afraid of me?
You're bigger.
Who said it? Sure. I'm bigger. Do you know if I carry?
I assume you do.
You assume. What have you seen? Makes you think that I'm carrying right now.
You're imposing, I'm afraid.
But you haven't seen me with a deadly weapon, have you? A knife, a gun, nothing.
Your hands could be deadly weapons.
There you go, I had a fist. Okay. All of these factors begin to play into it. How much time do you have to react to me?
Seconds.
Seconds.
After the first punch to the head, you're about through thinking.
That's it. You're not going to think. And what did Brian say earlier? You're making these admissions. When you start talking, if you haven't gone through 2 sleep cycles, you're not thinking correctly. What's happening in those situations? When are you justified in using deadly force? Anybody? When are you justified? Yes, sir.
The technical thing that I learned in another course was the attacker has to have the opportunity, the ability, and the intent to do harm to you. My question about that is, most confrontations happen within 21 feet, and the closer they are to you, the less likely they're going to reveal some of this. So you have very, very limited time to respond and react.
Yes, you do. Very, very limited. So what are you basing your decision on?
Whether I see any threat that offers those 3 issues.
And how do you determine? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for that person's ability to overpower me, whether or not, I don't care whether they're armed or not, if they're larger than me or they're younger than me, faster than me, which most people are anymore.
I hear you.
Then they're a threat. If they're sneaky about it, I won't know about it until it's too late. I've heard of issues where groups of young toughs will surround somebody and ask him, hey buddy, you got a light, and then at the last minute they converge on them. And I'm not sure you can defend yourself against a situation like that.
Particularly if there's more than one individual coming at you. Anybody else? What other decision-making thoughts go through your mind if you're confronted with the situation?
Come on, you've been in my class. Can I get there?
Yes.
Can I get away?
Can you get away?
If in a second my mind, I know I can outrun you, or I can kick you in your jewels, get away without having to pull my handgun out, I'm going to use it.
Okay. All right. Can you outrun a bullet?
No, but I can dodge one.
I used to play basketball with him. He reminded me, he came up the break, he said, we used to play basketball over at St. Jude's in Fort Wayne. I can tell you, he cannot dodge a bullet. But he cannot dodge a bullet. Okay, do you have to retreat though?
No.
No, you don't have to retreat. But that's something you're going to consider. What else are you going to consider?
Putting distance between you and the threat.
Distance?
Surroundings.
Pardon?
Surroundings.
What about your surroundings?
Who's around?
Who's around? Who else might be there? Whether your side or the other side?
Can I afford to give up what that person wants?
Can you afford to give up what that person wants? This young lady here in the front, a very good sport, Jesus, just take it. Right? You're not going to force the issue. That's like we go back to, the police officer stops you, that's not the time to debate. They come at you and you can afford to give it up. Go. What else?
I would take into account your attitude, the way you approached her, as to what my next reaction would be.
Yes, sir.
Is he a threat to my life?
Right.
I can't afford to give that up.
Right. And that's where it goes to. If you're just here to take my purse, take my briefcase, take my cell phone, you can have it. I can replace all that. I cannot replace my life. So you can meet deadly force, taking life, with deadly force. If what? If you reasonably believe that deadly force is going to occur. There's going to be force that's occurring. We see that as prosecutors when someone brings a gun to a fist fight. Where'd that phrase on? Yes.
What if the gun's in the purse and they want the purse?
It's up to you. You can give them up the purse and they're going to have the gun then. Most criminals, fortunately, my clientele is not as smart as you folks. Okay. All right. When they get that purse, they're gone. They're not going to stick around, rifle through it and say, wait, there's nothing in here. They're gone. So, what if it's your home? What if they come in your home? How many of you have a firearm readily accessible so that if someone comes into your home, it can be used? How many of you are prepared to use it? How many of you will use it? How many of you know when to use it? Not as many. When can you use that?
When they're in your home?
When they're in your home? And just standing there? Or when they're coming at you?
They're uninvited and it's early in the morning, they don't belong there.
And so what are you going to do?
Tell them they better leave or they're going to die.
Yes, sir?
I believe this is correct. You may use any amount of force that you believe is necessary to remove an intruder from your house, up to and including deadly force. And this is one of the few times in the Indiana state law where you do not have to have a fear of death or serious bodily injury to use deadly force.
Did he take your class?
Absolutely.
Let me read it to you. If I find it correctly here. A person is justified in using reasonable force, including deadly force, against another person, and does not have a duty to retreat if the person reasonably believes that the force is necessary to prevent or terminate the other person's unlawful entry of or attack on the person's dwelling, curtilage, or occupied motor vehicle.
What's a curtilage?
Pardon? What's a curtilage?
Yeah.
That's, you know what curtilage actually is? It's the word we lawyers and legislators put in here, so you have to come pay us to tell you. That's why you need good people, common people like him that tell the lawyers, cut that crap out. What do you think is curtilage? Your surroundings. Now it can be, as Brian can tell you, that can be expanded. You can have a whole course on what curtilage is. Your yard, you know, your property, okay? Does it include an unattached garage? Those sorts of things. You get into all that, but that's what curtilage is, your surroundings. Yes, good question. The word that comes in there that you have debates upon as attorneys and people end up in court over is what's reasonable. What is a reasonable person going to do in those circumstances? And that's why I ask these questions of you. What circumstances are you going to rely on? What is reasonable to you in that situation? And is that going to be reasonable to me? And does that depend upon who the person is, the size of the attacker, the stance, the distance? All of those things factor into reasonable. We'd love to be able to give you a bright line rule. You'd love that, wouldn't you? Just say, okay, Bob, if Y happens, then I can do X. Not necessarily. But the key is that it must be reasonable. I think many people think about that as common sense. It's got to be a commonsensical approach to the situation. Recognizing as prosecutors, and this is what I said an hour ago, that's why those cases are the most difficult to make the call. Because I wasn't there when you were attacked. I wasn't there when you felt it necessary. So you may get charged with a crime. If the person that came at you is killed, you may be charged with manslaughter, murder, homicide of some sort, reckless homicide. And then it is up for you and your defense attorney to come into the courtroom and challenge my case as the prosecutor. And Brian, I'm sure, will speak to that in a moment. But that's what the system then, the criminal justice system and the jury system is set up for. If there is that question, did you use reasonable force in any situation? And that's the law. It's, you can write it down. If you want to know the law against your self-defense and defense of your property, it's Indiana. We call it title. Just write down 35-41-3-2.
And buy Brian's book.
Yes. And buy the book.
You can also go to the Indiana's official website, Access Indiana, click on Law and Judiciary, and you can actually pull up the current statutes. The cases get real funky, but you can pull all the statutes up.
Take credit cards.
Yeah, if somebody wants a bug and you want to take a credit card, I can't do it. You can take a book or send a check to the office or call and somebody there can do it. But it's any.
So I'm going to sit down right now. Brian or anyone else wants to address that issue of the self-defense, and I'm sure we'll get some questions on that after lunch.